The clock ticked past midnight on the 7th floor of Riverside Corporate Plaza. The usual office buzz was gone. No ringing phones, no laughter, just silence. Desk lamps cast long shadows over empty cubicles. The air was heavy with the scent of carpet cleaner and stale coffee. Mark, a young accountant, was the only one left, hunched over his screen, fighting exhaustion. His eyes burned, his thoughts slowed, and a dull ache throbbed behind his temples. The silence pressed in, making it hard to think. He loosened his tie, struggling to breathe deeply. The city lights outside felt distant, but Mark's world had shrunk to his cubicle. He promised himself 10 more minutes, but the urge to close his eyes was overwhelming. The pressure in his head built, matching the relentless ticking of the clock. He was alone, or so he thought. Unseen, the night janitor, Paul Ivers, moved through the halls. His cart squeaked softly as he worked, methodical and silent. Paul never glanced at Mark's cubicle. He didn't need to. He already knew what was happening. The silence was Paul's domain, and within it he held a hidden power. Mark's fatigue deepened, his awareness fading. The office, once alive, now felt like a stage set for something unseen. Paul, the silent observer, watched the final act unfold. The night pressed on, indifferent and watchful. In the sterile quiet, something terrible was at work, and Mark was its next victim. Riverside Corporate Plaza looked ordinary, 10 stories of glass and steel, home to accountants, lawyers, and insurance agents. By day it bustled with routine. By night it was just another anonymous office building. Then the deaths began. Mark was found slumped at his desk, the cause listed as stress-induced cardiac arrest. Months later, a paralegal died the same way, late at night, on the same floor. The company sent out memos about work-life balance, but no one saw a pattern. Over the next year, 3 more late-night workers died, always alone, always on the upper floors. Autopsies found no toxins, no signs of struggle, no clear cause. Theories of stress and coincidence wore thin. A quiet fear crept in. The upper floors felt wrong. Police found nothing. No forced entry, no suspicious footage, no evidence of foul play. Management insisted it was bad luck, bringing in experts to test the air. All tests came back negative. For a while the deaths stopped and normalcy returned. But the building's reputation had changed. The silence at night felt heavier, as if the air itself was watching. Employees whispered about the unlucky floors. The police remained baffled. The quiet was only an intermission in a slow, unfolding horror. Something in Riverside Corporate Plaza was still waiting. Through it all, Paul Ivers, the night janitor, remained unnoticed. In his 50s, quiet and reliable, Paul had worked there for over a decade. He arrived as others left, exchanged polite nods, and blended into the background. Paul lived alone, with no family and no criminal record. His routine was unchanging, his presence almost ghostly. With a master keycard, he had access to every room, every hidden corner. He knew the building's secrets, its wiring, its ducts, its forgotten spaces. Paul was always present when tragedy struck, often the one to find the bodies. He spoke little, offered simple statements, and faded into the periphery. No one ever suspected him. He was just the janitor. In the search for answers, everyone overlooked the constant, the quiet man with the keys. Paul's knowledge of the building was unmatched. He was the silent guardian, the keeper of secrets. While others saw only offices, Paul saw the building's hidden anatomy. He was invisible, by design and by choice. And in that invisibility, he held all the power. The investigation stalled until detectives re-examined the building itself. Old blueprints revealed a forgotten environmental control system, once state-of-the-art, now obsolete. It regulated not just temperature, but oxygen, using tanks in a sub-basement. The system was decommissioned years ago, replaced by modern HVAC. But the old manual valves and ductwork remained, dormant but intact. Engineers discovered the system could still be partially reactivated. Someone with access could cut off fresh air to specific floors, causing gradual oxygen deprivation. The victims would feel tired, confused, then slip into unconsciousness, never realizing what was happening. The cause of death was not poison, but the silent absence of oxygen. The question shifted: who could manipulate this forgotten system? The list of suspects was suddenly very short. Only someone with deep knowledge and unrestricted access could pull it off. The focus narrowed to the one person who knew the building better than anyone. All eyes turned to Paul Ivers. Investigators watched Paul Ivers closely. Security footage showed him on his rounds, but also slipping into maintenance rooms and the sub-basement. On the nights of the deaths, Paul always visited the old control room. He stayed just long enough to adjust something, then returned to his duties, calm and unhurried. A search of his apartment revealed technical manuals, building schematics, and a locked journal. The journal wasn't a diary of a killer, but a logbook, precise notes on his adjustments to the oxygen system. He recorded floors, times, and durations, referring to employees as subjects. There were no manifestos, no personal vendettas, just cold clinical observation. Paul wasn't targeting individuals. He was running an experiment. The office workers were his unwitting test subjects. He understood the building's systems better than its designers. His curiosity was methodical, detached. The evidence was clear. Paul had turned the building into his laboratory. The deaths were not accidents. They were data points. Paul was not a monster in the traditional sense. He was a scientist, and the office was his experiment. The invisible man had finally been seen. Paul Ivers confessed without resistance. Calm and emotionless, he explained how he reactivated the old system, isolating airflow and watching the results. He felt no anger, no hatred, just boredom and curiosity. Years of routine had made him invisible, a cog in a machine no one noticed. Discovering the old system became his secret puzzle. He wondered what would happen if he turned a valve. So he did. His motivation was not malice, but the desire to observe an effect. He wanted to control something, to see if he could change the environment. Watching from a distance, he felt like a god, altering the air people breathed. He felt no guilt, only satisfaction that his experiment worked. Psychologists found no classic signs of psychopathy, just profound detachment. The people in the building were not real to him. They were variables in his experiment. Paul had spent so long being invisible, he'd forgotten how to see others as human. His actions were monstrous, but his motive was chillingly simple. He was the janitor who watched them die, not out of hate, but out of cold curiosity. The invisible man had left his mark. Paul Ivers' arrest was kept quiet. The truth was too unsettling for headlines. He was sentenced to life, and the story faded from public view. The building underwent a swift renovation. Old oxygen systems ripped out, new HVAC installed, every trace of the past erased. The company wanted a fresh start, but memories lingered. Employees whispered about the unlucky floors and the colleagues they lost. The renovation was a symbolic act, but the building's history couldn't be painted over. The silence in the hallways now carried a different weight. Paul's story is a chilling reminder. Danger doesn't always come from rage or passion. Sometimes it comes from quiet detachment, from the person you never notice. The greatest threat can be the one hiding in plain sight. The renovated office stood as a monument to this truth. Sometimes, the most dangerous person is the one no one is watching. And sometimes, the silence itself is a warning.